that it's more than just one thing. You can come to the new exhibit in our downtown location and learn comprehensively about the history of Charlotte. But then you can go into a community and learn something more about a community that may be new to you. Or you can go on an experience to another place, and the Levine helps provide the context for and the connections to, why that is a part of the broader story of the South that really is a critical part of what museum's trying to provide.
We wouldn't be doing our job unless we were everywhere we could be, to connect with people, to share those stories, but also to learn more stories. There's a lot of times in our programs where we set out to teach people something or to bring something to them, and they come with us and teach us a whole lot more than we could ever have expected to learn.
I like to be a part of the community. I like to be a part of the change. And if I just sit in the house, how am I going to get that change? That doesn't grow me and doesn't grow my neighborhood. And that's what I want to be. I want to be that person that is giving us a different chance. And the Levine has grown over the course. You all are doing so much more and putting so much more out there that you want to come out and see this. What is Levine doing?
What we want to hear more than anything is that people have walked away from our program feeling a lot more inspired. So we're wanting to hear that people have walked away with ideas and inspiration and feel empowered to take steps past that program, that it doesn't just end within those couple of hours that we may all be gathered, but that it continues on.
Lo más emocionante de ir a los eventos del Museo Levine es todo lo que sucede antes y después. Yo trabajo con los estudiantes que participan pintando caras, entonces tienen que trabajar como 2 semanas antes, comprando los productos o practicando en la cara de sus compañeros. Es todo una celebración que se va armando de a poco y luego la conversación que va a seguir después en la mente de los estudiantes pensando, esto es lo que me llevo para aprender más sobre la comunidad.
The Levine Museum reaching out, coming into the community, and really, again, hearing those authentic stories, hearing what it was like to grow up in Greer Heights. It reminds some people and also introduces others to that rich history and that rich founding of Greer Heights.
I think education is one of the most important things that the museum can do, both in a broad sense, really educating our community about the place they live and how the place they live really is a reflection of the broader South, and the South a reflection of the country as a whole. But also in a more literal sense, I think one of the most important things we can do is be a resource and a tool to our public education system in Charlotte.
History shapes all of us. And if we don't understand where we came from, we can't understand where we go. For example, to understand that Brooklyn used to exist uptown, to understand that, in 1898, Charlotte was the most integrated city in the South. Then by 1930s becomes one of the most segregated cities in the South. Becomes this really interesting question about who are we as a community and what does that define us and how does it define us? And you find that as students delve into this and they start to think, they start to question, well, if it was like that in 1898, what happened in between there? And how do we get then here? And that as an educator is where all of a sudden, I got my students thinking, right? And so now they're thinking beyond themselves.
We're asking you to go as a teacher back into the classroom and truly to dive in to the events that your students are facing on a daily basis. We're asking you to give your students a voice. Let them be the storyteller. Let them unpack the challenges that they're facing.
And there's something beautiful, and you can never recreate it, about empowering a student. Because once that student is empowered and understands who they are and begins to understand themselves, they can figure out their future.
The exhibit is asking the visitor to engage in a learning experience, in traditional ways where you can read panels on the wall, look at artifacts, but it's also posing questions for you right out of the gate. And so the visitor is asked to really think about and explore this history and look for meaning, because you're looking for an answer. So you're invited to engage in a process of critical thinking and analytical thinking right there in the exhibit. The exhibition is divided up into 4 main sections. And so each section has a overarching question that when the visitors enter the section, they're presented with a question, and then they're presented with stories that provide answers to that question. And so the 4 questions are, how did Charlotte grow from a small trading village to a national financial center? The next question is, how do resistance and inequality shape Charlotte? The third one is, how is Charlotte becoming a more multicultural city? And the last one is, what does it mean to be a New South city? So each section a visitor approaches, they'll be encountered this question and then stories of people, places, and events that help them reflect on the answer. Other digital components include a mapping interactive. It's a large touch screen where you can take a deep dive into 4 different neighborhoods in Charlotte and to compare and contrast the evolution of these neighborhoods, when they did and how they did and why they developed where they did. Another digital component is the textile mill village. So visitors will be able to approach a touch screen, choose a worker as their own persona, and then make choices as that worker throughout the mill village. We're using the history of the city to help build our community. And the history of the city really reflects that. So there's a lot of challenges in the past that people have faced, and then there's also a lot of resilience and strength and love in Charlotte's past as well. And in my heart, I want people to know that this is a beautiful place and it could be even more beautiful, and that individuals can really impact the trajectory of the city and people's lives here in the city.
For me, the impact is seeing how people are getting that knowledge at the museum and then going and engaging in the community around those conversations. That's what a space like the Levine Museum can play, is helping people understand those dynamic and powerful stories that they're going to learn and taking them back out into the community.